However, what we're doing now is we're using AI as a thinking partner.
Hmm.
So we're not going to books or Google or anything. We're synthesizing knowledge so quickly and then coming up with ways of essentially reorienting ourselves with this new augmentation partner. And I can see the people around me who are essentially Uber users of technology, and I talk with them and I'm constantly surprised. You've done that? That's amazing. These people are high performance, thinking differently, and they're conscious of how the AI creative partner is helping them achieve the next levels. But there's the lazier version of that where we outsource our thinking to the technology and we're no longer a partner, we're reliant on it too much. And that's where I think we'll start to have problems both in our personal life and in our professional life.
Welcome to the AI Grapple Podcast. My name is Kate vanderVoort, founder and CEO of the AI Success Lab. Today on the AI Grapple, I'm joined by Sarah Daly, an AI strategist and researcher who works at the intersection of technology, leadership, and real-world decision-making. Sarah is the co-founder of AI 360 Review, where she helps boards and senior leaders make sense of AI without the hype, fear, or guesswork. Her work focuses on how organizations actually adopt AI in practice, what gets in the way, and how people experience change when technology moves faster than culture. In this conversation, we talk about the biggest fears leaders are facing right now with AI, the 4 stages of AI adoption and how boards can use them to guide smarter decisions, and why the people side of AI is where most organizations either succeed or fail. Sarah also shares examples of organizations doing this well and what they did differently. If you're leading teams, shaping strategy, or navigating AI change, this episode is for you. Let's dive right in. Hi, Sarah. Welcome to the AI Grapple.
Hey, Kate, it's lovely to be here. Thanks for having me.
So listen, why don't we start out by you sharing a little bit about your background and how you've come to be working in and with AI?
I had a moment about 7-8 years ago where I thought, oh my goodness, there's this new technology out there and it's going to shift what happens in the world. I had absolutely no idea what that shift would be or what the impact would be. But I thought, look, I was there when the internet changed everything. I was there when social media and SEO changed everything. And AI seemed to be, the new disruptor to how everything happens inside of technology and effectively how we work. So I was talking to a couple of friends who are researchers in robotics, and they were working in healthcare. And it was such an interesting space. And then I started to see organizations like research companies and copywriters using these tools that would generate new things. So, okay, let's have a look at this. So I started a PhD to research AI, but then I thought, okay, there's this problem that we're going to have, because I was looking specifically at healthcare. I thought, how are people even going to trust this new kind of technology? Because it behaves differently. It's not just an if-then. Then we run something. It comes up with new things. It's inherently creative. And we hadn't had that level of creativity that existed inside a technology before. So with a tech that can come up with new ideas and recraft things, it's got this combinatorial effect. What would happen to how we react to this technology as people? So I looked at trust, because that's how people engage with one another, and thought there's this almost a new entity that's being crafted and discovered that we're going to be interacting with. So yeah, I did 6 years of research into how we trust AI at work and how we build trust in AI at work. And then I've applied that into the work I'm doing inside organizations.
Yeah, trust is such an interesting dilemma when it comes to AI. And I really feel like we're in an age where the default mechanism is distrust. And I think, I'm really looking forward to exploring more about how we help humans develop trust and where we should and shouldn't necessarily have trust in AI.
Yeah. So it's interesting. The narrative is often around distrust. But how many people do you know who are putting some of the most personal details about their life into ChatGPT? And that's the deepest level of trust in a technology that I think we've encountered. It's absolutely fascinating. So in a work context, there's this narrative around distrust. But when we're actually using it, it's very much trusted by us every day. So there's a conflict there.
And there's a lot of layers to it too, because I think,
Yeah.
you can't trust anything that you see online anymore at all. And I often ponder the fact that we're the last generation that will ever be able to look at a piece of art or or listen to a piece of music and know that it was created by a human. And that's, so there's so many different layers to that trust piece. So in your work at AI 360 Review, you focus very much on the human foundations that turn technology into performance. So can you explain a bit more about how you work with enterprises and how you approach AI adoption?
Yeah, we focus first on humans because once you've got the technology stack right, it's humans who essentially help an organization to design, deliver, enact whatever the organization's strategy is. They're the thing that you can't control, essentially. Like, technology is quite controllable. It's more predictable. AI is slightly different, of course. But humans interact. They're part of a system. They behave in ways that you can't necessarily predict. And once you put AI inside an organization, you just don't know what's going to happen unless you design essentially the ecosystem around you the right way. So some of the research I did showed that trust isn't just about the individual, it's about the environment that people exist inside and work inside. Trust is able to be curated. You can do that. You can move someone from being quite negative about AI to being an absolute advocate, given the right environment and almost the right conditions for them to thrive inside. So that's what we work with, and that's what we look at. We help organizations design the conditions for trust and that long-term sustainable trust in AI. So that enables successful transformations. We focus on designing a strategy that adds value, and the AI is constantly looked at, revised, reviewed to say, is this going to add to our strategy? Most strategies aren't necessarily focused on AI as the transformation or AI as the competitive advantage. So it sits underneath what the organization is doing, how the organization orients itself to enable that strategy. And that means we're asking, well, what's the problem that we're trying to solve here? And how can AI help us to achieve solving that problem? Then we look at, all right, well, what's the value that AI is going to deliver for us? And that's where we start to look at the more operational side, where we build the capabilities to transform. We look at governance. So the things that we often see are, if you're an organization that's focused on innovation, are you giving your people the right tools, the right structure to be able to use technology in a way that's going to enable innovation? Some companies are saying, look, it's blocked. You can't use this, you can't use that. But if there's a disconnect between, we're enabling innovation and no, you can't use those AI tools because we don't actually trust you with the tools. It's this disconnect. So then we go to culture and we start to look at, well, what kind of culture are you enabling here? And this is the deeply human side of AI adoption. How are we genuinely thinking about this and developing our culture? One of the first things to look at here are we being transparent with the way we're enabling AI inside our organization? Is it here to augment our people, or is it here to replace our people, or is it a mix of both? And if that's the case, how do we do this in a way that supports our culture, our organizational values, the behaviors that we want to see inside our organization? That's a space I work quite strongly in and that I advocate for. Most organizations have a position on how they want to be. AI needs to support that, and how we roll out AI needs to align very, very well with that. Then we go to education. Lifting capability is fundamental to having a workforce that's confident. We look at innovation. How are we trying to solve those problems? Always there's the question of what is the problem we're trying to solve here? And the innovation process helps you design, and get out of. A lot of organizations are in that proof of concept paralysis of, okay, I've got this idea. How do I scale it? Well, the classic innovation process helps you to do that, and you just put the AI lens over it. And then we look at use cases and making sure the technology stack is fit for purpose and right for use. So these are all of the areas. There's 6 areas. We've got this framework that we go in and look across the entire organization, and that's called the AI 360 framework.
Yeah, and it's interesting where Australia sits in this at the moment. And I think we're always a little bit behind, countries like the US who've barreled headlong. But it's interesting. I work probably, you work very much at an enterprise level, and the organisations I'm working with or the teams I'm working with are generally a step down from that. I'm interested in your experience. What kind of, I guess if you did a pulse read at the moment on where, organisations are in their comfort levels or trust of AI, because it feels like we've been sitting back for quite a while. We've now got our national AI plan, which I'll ask you about too, because I think that's been an interesting approach. Not sure it's the right approach, but an interesting approach. But just to do a pulse check, I feel very much from the conversations I'm having, there are still organisations that are either very locked into a particular tech stack, which really reduces the ability for innovation, or they haven't addressed a whole lot of those fears and concerns that are arising within the workplace, which means that human piece is quite difficult to integrate with the strategy. I'm just interested in your reflections on all of that.
Where we see the biggest enablers to help shift is how the leadership are talking about and supporting AI as a journey inside the organization. If you've got leaders who understand the technology, understand how to apply it inside their teams, essentially how to build AI-enabled teams, and then to find problems that team need to solve that are, you can use AI to solve them, and then give them the right tools to do that. That's a successful, way of working. But where there's any of those missing, you start to have people, if the leadership support isn't there, then you've got teams going out and using whatever they like. And if you head into your network system and it's not allowed, you just take that work home with you and you do it there and you bring it back. So you sit there with a personal computer and a work computer and you just do that. So people will always have ways around things. So it's those governance structures are so important, because if you essentially allow people to learn to experiment and then find ways to solve for business value, that's going to work. If you've got leaders that are unsure and I think are listening too much to the hype, there's a lot of noise. You jump onto any of the platforms, there's a lot of voices telling you what to do and how to think and things to look out for. If you're just focusing on how do I achieve business value with this new tool that's out there, be really clear and just focus on that. Sure, have the tech radars happening in the background, but yeah, just keep it focused.
And so sentiment-wise, are you feeling, because I'm certainly feeling a shift in the work that we're doing, that sentiment-wise there is some movement happening that has maybe been a bit stuck here in Australia. Are you starting to see that at that larger enterprise level as well? Some more momentum?
Yeah, in terms of the population in Australia, we are some of the least trusting of AI. Nicole Gillespie out of UQ, I think she's at Melbourne Business School now, did a survey on global trust in AI, which was excellent. And we came out abysmally. It was, like, what's happening here? In the workplace, though, at the enterprise level, certainly, it depends on where you're working. So if you're essentially in a space where you have the tools, you can use it. It's providing value for you. You're going to feel pretty great about it. But if you're in a role that's saying, you're in a high risk area, there's high impacts if you do something with AI, and your organization has said no, you can't use it, then you're going to be feeling like, well, are you going to automate me out of a job? Are you going to, just stop me moving ahead because I'm trying to invest in my future of work, but I can't here? So then they're thinking, well, do I need to go somewhere else to be able to invest in myself? I think it will be playing out differently at the enterprise level than at smaller business levels, because we in enterprises, we have a technology stack. There's a lot of safety that goes on behind that. There's a lot of security. There's a lot of testing and governance. So that can be very strong. For example, the Australian Public Service they've put Copilot across everywhere. They're rolling out AI literacy for everyone. They're doing training across the board. So that's going to lift sentiment, I think, across the public service, because that's deliberately enabled. But when you've got organisations that are holding back out of, I'm not sure what the implications of this are, and I'm not sure if it's safe, all of those thoughts are valid. But how you think about it and protect yourself, it's a risk management problem. It's not a do we or don't we problem. So yeah, those kind of things can change the sentiment on the ground for staff. Yeah.
And what are your thoughts on our national AI plan and our approach to that?
Yeah, I like that it's essentially integrating AI as a technology into how we already work. It's by not having a body that will formally govern organizations, but having that work through regulators. I'm actually good with that. I think that there are so many other styles of technology. This is just the latest one. There will be more. Looking at the implications for customers through the Privacy Acts, for example, and having AI amendments into an existing act. That's excellent because it already exists, and it lowers essentially the impact on recrafting law, making new government bodies, that sort of thing. I don't think we need them. And I'm really happy that we're using existing systems and policies to make changes and make sure that things are done the right way. But in the end, organizations that are regulated still have Overwatch. And this is the new thing that they're really keeping an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm incredibly glad we haven't gone down the EU path, because I think that's, they're starting to wind back some of the Safety Act now, knowing that they went in really, really hard. But I do wonder whether AI is bringing up new challenges that we haven't yet encountered. So I think it will be interesting to see how that is managed. And obviously it will adapt over time. And if that's not an appropriate way forward, then that will change in due course. But it does feel very much like the middle ground between the EU and the US, which is a good place to start.
Yeah. But do you know what? I think AI is bringing up challenges that have been there in other technologies, but we haven't really had the courage to dive into them. If you think of even just privacy on mobile phones, that sort of thing, and safety on mobile phones, and you've got the e-safety commissioner changing what the rules are on social media for children. These are the sorts of things that when we learn more about the technology, we adapt what we're doing. So technology always evolves. And
it did take us 16 years, though, to get a handle on social media, and I don't think we've got that long. We can't wait that long.
I know.
We do that with AI.
But the great thing is we can learn from other technologies and then apply that to AI.
Do you feel like this does feel different to me from other technology transformations that we've been through? And I think it does touch everybody, if not professionally, personally. And so, yeah, I don't know. I can't quite put my finger on it. It definitely feels like the stakes are higher and there's a different transformation that's happening at the moment that I think a lot of people are not quite aware is happening at the pace that it is.
Where I think the biggest impact will be is on how we think. Social media has impacted how we think in some ways, shorter attention spans, that sort of thing. However, AI is changing even the language that people use, how emails and communications are structured, how
the M dash
has come back. Yeah, I love the M dash. It's great. However, what we're doing now is we're using AI as a thinking partner. So we're not going to books or Google or anything. We're synthesizing knowledge so quickly and then coming up with ways of essentially reorienting ourselves with this new augmentation partner. And I can see the people around me who are essentially Uber users of technology, and I talk with them and I'm constantly surprised. Oh, you've done that? That's amazing. These people are high performance, thinking differently, and they're conscious of how the AI creative partner is helping them achieve the next levels. But there's the lazier version of that where we outsource our thinking to the technology and we're no longer a partner, we're reliant on it too much. And that's where I think we'll start to have problems both in our personal life and in our professional lives.
I get asked that question all the time. Do you think AI is going to make us smarter or dumber? And my response is always, well, it depends how we use it. If you just outsource your job and replace yourself with AI, you will become very replaceable, and that will do nothing to enhance your, your thinking and your growth. But I think one of the things, there are two concepts that I think are going to be really present for us. One is discernment. I think that's going to be the word of the decade, is discernment, and everybody needs to master the skill of discernment in the age of AI. And the second is personal responsibility. It's really easy to blame the technology, to blame the government, to blame these big tech companies. But we are all personally responsible for how we use this technology. And so if you want to use it to make yourself smarter and use it as a thought partner, and then that's how we get to choose to use it. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how many end up in each camp on that one.
Yeah. It was still only a year ago where I would have questions around, well, isn't what the AI is saying accurate? Like, no, it's not accurate. So people still don't understand what it is and what it's capable of and how to use it. I think that once we learn, and kind of calibrate our trust and calibrate our use with it, understanding it's not like the old technology where it is more accurate. It's not necessarily. So I think that's the next change to happen.
Well, I was just reading research that 93% of people believe what comes out of AI, and that's where that discernment comes in. And
Yeah,
there are
yeah,
absolutely strategies to ensure, I'm forever using 2 or 3 of the different models to fact check and cross check and
yeah,
to work off each other to increase the quality of what's being created. But the average everyday user is not doing that.
no,
And, potentially just blindly believing what comes out of AI.
yeah. And the thing is, we build habits around it. If it's been right for the last 8 out of 9 times, well, the ninth time is probably going to be great too,
Yeah,
but maybe
yeah,
it's
and
not.
you build a level of trust
Yeah.
and comfort with that. So Sarah, the technology is what's getting most of the attention right now, and I always say this is a human transformation, not a technology transformation that we're going through. And I know that you have a very similar approach with your human-centered focus. But the people impact is often where it falls apart. So
Mm.
in your work, what are some of the things that you're doing that help workforces navigate that disruption, the uncertainty, and the change that's coming with such a large technology adoption?
Yeah. Um, it it's the messy space where many organizations aren't brave enough to go yet. It's leading organizations absolutely are, but it's how, how do we communicate this the right way to our workforce, because we are going to change. How do we do this, and how do we bring our people along with us? And for some, for some organizations, it's, well, how do we let go of the people that we're going to automate out? And this is the reality. And it's the organizations who have the transparent conversation with their staff and bring them on the journey, acknowledging that if I know that you're not going to be on the boat in a year or 2 years' time, I'm going to help you to find, the next thing for you, to make sure that through the whole process you have the highest level of agency possible, rather than hiding what's coming. And we know that we're existing in this space of uncertainty where we don't necessarily know what the impacts are going to be. However, most organizations are designing strategies right now, and they're designing AI as part of their strategy. Therefore, they know there's going to be implications on the workforce, whether it's an augmentation or a replacement or both.
And
So
it's such an
having,
it's such an uncomfortable conversation that
yeah,
not many are having. They're certainly happening internally, but not a
yeah,
lot happening in a
but
transparent
everybody
way.
knows.
Mm,
They all
mm.
know. The chatter across any platform, everybody knows this. It's in all the media, it's on LinkedIn, everywhere. You have a conversation with someone at the dinner table, that's what people are talking about. So I think it's the organizations that are brave enough to be transparent and to help their people, be the best versions of themselves the whole way along that journey, and understand that, well, why are we doing this? Are we doing this to improve the customer experience? Are we doing this to, boost whatever the organization is planning to be doing in the next 2 to 5 years? That's why we're doing it. Now, this is how we can support you as a team member, as an individual. Part of that I'm an absolute advocate for is making sure that everyone is AI literate and is trained in how to create value for their business and for any business that they're in with AI. And you can do that at almost a granular level, just using things like Copilot and ChatGPT.
So one of the things that I think a lot of organizations are not necessarily thinking about is the potential backlash towards AI. And we've seen some fairly spectacular, I won't say fails, but organizations who've gone out and had a go and gone all in on AI and had their staff train AI to replace them. And then the consumer backlash has been high. And so they've had to readjust that strategy. How are you helping organisations to factor those kind of decisions in to the strategic planning?
Yeah, the backlash has been coming from organizations that are at that experimental stage. And you've got cases like Air Canada, for example, that enabled AI into their chatbot. The chatbot gave advice on pricing. The company wouldn't essentially say, okay, we're going to own that pricing conversation. They blamed it on the technology. And of course, that went to court because you can't outsource a decision to the technology. As a company, if you have that platform up and running, you own it. That's your communication channel with your customer. So, I mean, those kind of companies, they're the case studies now in how not to do it. And we've learned a lot from what other companies have been experimenting with, especially the US companies. They've gone early and strong, and there's been some mistakes made. So as the second movers, we can look at that and say, okay, well, this is what not to do. Let's not go there. Let's do some really amazing testing before we send anything out that's customer facing. And that means you're far more secure in being able to essentially roll something out. And the impact on your customers, for example, is going to be, we've designed this to be right for you as a customer. You're going to enjoy the experience. It's going to be valuable for you. And because we've done it that way and we've tested it so rigorously, now we can roll it out and you, the customer, are going to achieve the benefits from our investment in this new technology. So, if you have a customer service query that could have taken 72 hours to resolve, and it's resolved for you inside 20 minutes, that's pretty great. You'll probably keep using that company, and so your experience is more sticky. That customer experience is like, oh, I'm an advocate now. These companies, they won't deal with my problem very quickly, but this one, they will. You'll recommend the company.
And what's your view on transparency about AI use from a public perspective? I know I see it all the time on social media. I'm in a lot of the, AI communities, and the number of people that still say, if I know a company's using an AI voice agent, I will not do business with that company. And I'm stunned that there's still that level of, and I would venture to say they haven't experienced a good AI voice agent yet. Because as you say, if people get their needs met immediately as opposed to dealing with some of the challenges that we've had with customer service over in the past. How do you help companies, I guess, make decisions about whether they're transparent about the use of AI?
Yeah, that when people think about trust in AI and use, there's two ways to think about it. And this is a technology thing. So is it useful and is it easy to use? Those two things are always going to encourage people to use whatever the technology is. They're the factors for trust in technology. Now, when you think about transparency, it shifts because our expectations shift. I first looked at art and creative content early in my kind of investigating AI journey, and everyone was very much, if it's made by an AI, you have to label it. There's still that conversation, and I think that's okay. My position on it was, well, I'm not going to put any AI images out into the public that I haven't edited myself, or I'm going to label them as AI, because I have a creative authorship kind of mentality around that. However, I think that's shifting. And when we started to have conversations 2.5 years ago around producing content with AI inside organizations, it was, well, if you've made it with AI, you have to say it's been made with AI. But it's our partner in our work now. And we're teaching people, don't just put things out there that are made with AI. You have to use your mind and you have to curate whatever that content is. Don't just publish it. So that means it's AI plus me. And then do I have to say it's AI plus me? Or do I just assume that, of course, it's AI plus me because everyone's using it? And I think we're just about at the point where it's everyone's using it. So it feels like that little notification, when iPhone has sent with my iPhone.
Yeah.
We kind of assume it's sent with your phone. It's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things we do with clients is help them develop an external statement around their use of AI. So it's an AI integrity or ethics statement, which discloses how customer data is interacting, if customer data is being used in AI and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And I think, that may just become something like our privacy and terms and conditions on a website. Or it may be that we move through this period of unease and that we all just assume that our data is going into AI.
Well, there's a different way of approaching it. When I'm talking about that, I'm talking about using AI inside organizations. But when you're telling your customers how you're interacting with them, that is important. And right now that's enacted through the Privacy Act in Australia, where they have requirements on what you need to say to your customers, how you manage your customer data, how you protect your customers' data from going overseas. So you need to have very strong controls over your models and where their data is going. That and having those kind of transparency statements on your website, in any policy documents, in any engagement documents, I think that is important because people need to know how you're protecting them.
I imagine most privacy statements, however, don't include AI yet.
Not yet.
Maybe they do at the enterprise level, but it's certainly not at a a few tiers down.
Yeah.
But maybe now that our national AI plan is all about managing it within current regulations, then it's about updating all of our those public statements.
And it's people's expectations also that pushes it, because if I'm interacting with you as an organization and I'm giving over my personal information, especially you think in healthcare and finance, I want to know that you're looking after my personal data and it's not going to goodness knows where.
So, Sarah, given all of the enterprise experience that you have in this AI transformation, I'd love to hear about any particularly innovative or human-centered ways where you've seen a company do it differently and where that's really worked. And then I guess what can other leaders learn from that case study or those case studies?
Yeah, I read recently one by IKEA over in Europe, and they'd essentially had a whole bunch of call centers that they put voice AI into, and apparently that's going very well. But for all of those call center people, what they did was they trained all of them to be interior designers inside their stores. So what that effectively did was change their business model slightly. So there are more advisors and more people helping curate the furniture and the experience. And I think now you can go in there and you can design bathrooms and kitchens and things like that. So they actually changed what's possible for the customer, because they took that position of, well, we've got this amazing staff who are really loyal to us. Let's be innovative and figure out how can we essentially change what these people do so that that's beneficial for them and for us. So yeah, there's a whole lot of new interior designers out there in the world that would never have been unless IKEA had shifted to using AI for customer service.
Yeah, I love that because, we often talk about let's get AI to do the mundane, repeatable tasks so it can free us up to be more human. And that's one of those great examples of, they can have their humans out on the floor selling more product, which certainly serves the customer, but definitely serves the bottom line at the same time.
Yeah. And they're trained in a skill that's transferable as well. So if you're not going to work in IKEA in 2 years' time, you're walking out of that place with this fabulous skill that you can take into so many other kinds of roles. So I was just so impressed when I read that case study. It gives me hope.
We need more of that. So, Sarah, as we start to wrap up and you stand on the hill and you look out as far as you can, which is not very far at the moment, if we get this human piece right in the AI transformation journey at an enterprise level, what does the future look like? What's possible?
I think the world changes and it doesn't. And let me explain. So I think that who we are as humans is pretty, like, it's fundamental. It hasn't shifted for a very long time. You read anything that was written, even 1,000 years ago, the human condition doesn't necessarily change. And what we want, our drivers, what makes us want to be in the world, they don't shift very much. We want autonomy, mastery, purpose. These are the, if you read anything by Dan Pink on how humans are motivated, those things I feel will remain quite stable. So it's how we enable ourselves as a group of humans with this new type of technology that makes us think, okay, how will we be doing that? How will we have more autonomy, mastery, or purpose in the world? That's where I think AI will start to be really interesting. And you'll have some people that are, they're not really that interested, or they find ways to, like the cybersecurity and the scams and all of the, the darker side, I suppose, of what's possible with AI. But I'm an optimist, so I always look to the lighter side as well and the potential of new technologies, acknowledging that there's always the duality. And yeah, I see more potential for people changing what work is. So we've been in an industrial situation for a long time as employees where we're part of this system or this machine of how things happen in the world. But potentially we may not be tied to one organization quite so much. We may have more freedom for ourselves. We may have more freedom of thought. In terms of mastery, you look at what is possible right now. So I'm a better, smarter version of myself augmented by AI because I choose that. It doesn't dumb me down. It really does enhance how I think. So you take the next level of that over 20, 30 years, imagine what's possible. And potentially this will help us, really think about why we're here and help us in creating the kind of purpose that we want for a society and for ourselves as individuals, for our families. So I think there's a lot of potential there, and I'm curious to find out what does happen.
Yes, I think we're all curious to find out what does happen, but I love that optimistic view, and that's that's certainly my view as well if we do get it right. Now, the last question, Sarah, as we wrap up, what is your favourite AI tool and why?
So I use I use the 3 Cs. So at work, Copilot, ChatGPT for that sits across everything, and I use Claude as well. So Claude's great for writing. I like Anthropic's kind of position on how they think about even the rights of AI itself. I find that fascinating. So yeah, I kind of have a toolkit rather than a favourite.
Yes, it's I have somebody in one of my online communities who is campaigning for the legal rights of AI and who very strongly believes that if AI is replacing humans, that AI should be reimbursed for the work that it is doing. So it's a colourful world that we're emerging into with a lot of different perspectives that we'll see over the coming years. Thank you so much, Sarah, for your time today. I've really enjoyed our conversation. How do people find out more about you or connect with you online?
You can find me on LinkedIn very easily, Sarah Daly, and you can find our company AI 360 Review at ai360review.com.
Fabulous. And we'll include all of those links in the show notes. Thanks again, Sarah. Thank you for tuning in to the AI Grapple. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and colleagues and subscribe on your favourite podcast platform. We would love to hear your thoughts, so reach out with any questions or comments about the show. Until next time, keep grappling with AI and stay curious.